MLB realignment is fresh in the news, of course, because Rob Manfred came out and said that realignment is currently being discussed. Now, we obviously need expansion before we're going to get realignment, but isn't it fun to talk about? And we've got three proposals that have been going around the internet. We're going to take a look at the pros and cons of each and see where everything shakes out and see what you are a fan of. Let's go. Let's kick it off from the Athletic article with Jim Bowden. Jim Bowden actually put this out 2-3 years ago, but it's resurfaced and Bowden is still talking about it, so we have to look at it. And this expansion realignment looks at the elimination of the American League and the National League and bringing in the creation of the Eastern and Western Conference, or whatever you want to call it. Bowden just went with Eastern and Western Conference because it makes the most sense geographically. So let's take a look. In the Eastern Conference, you'd have the Eastern Division with Boston, the Mets, Yankees, and Philadelphia. Oh boy, is that stacked. North Division, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, and Toronto. The Mid-Atlantic, Baltimore, an expansion Charlotte team, Pittsburgh, Washington. Southeast, Atlanta, Miami, another expansion team in Nashville, and Tampa Bay. Now, there's a lot to talk about in terms of that Eastern Conference. Of course, the Eastern Division with those big four teams really stacks up as something that's very, very interesting because they're known as four of the biggest spenders in the game with the Mets, Yankees, Red Sox, and Phillies. And of course, you're probably only talking of at most two of those teams then making the playoffs in a given season, although maybe it becomes a possibility of three. We'll talk about that in a second. The other thing that really comes with this proposal to me that I really don't like is the fact you have two expansion teams in this Eastern Conference, Charlotte and Nashville, and that means no expansion out west. And I think Major League Baseball just cannot go about doing that. It would just not work out. I think you need to have at least one expansion in the East, one expansion in the West. This doesn't work out for me in this sense, but it's interesting to talk about. A couple of the other divisions there, I really like where the Jays lined up in this kind of North Division with Cleveland, Detroit, Cincinnati. Be a very interesting division in terms of a personal aspect. But overall, I'm not sure if I'm real big on this East-West thing, but let's take a look at the Western Conference then. In that Western Conference, you'd have the Midwest Division, the Cubs, White Sox, Milwaukee, and Minnesota. Southwest, you've got Houston, Kansas City, St. Louis, Texas. Pacific, Colorado, the Athletics, which should be in Las Vegas, Seattle, and San Francisco. And the Western Division, Arizona, the Angels, Dodgers, and Padres. Now, this is where it really pops up to me in terms of what I don't like about this East-West split. Yes, geographically, it makes a lot of sense. But there's the elimination of the American and National League rivalries, in my opinion. You lose that Cubs and Cardinals in the same division. You lose that San Francisco Giants, LA Dodgers in the same division. You're losing some of these rivalries. As a Blue Jay fan, you're losing out on the rivalries with the Red Sox and Yankees. There's a loss of a lot of division rivalries. You can make the same case for Atlanta leaving the NL East, losing rivalries with the Mets and Phillies that have really built over the years. So there's a lot to like and a lot to dislike. Obviously, travel will be a huge, huge push in terms of this division split. Far more games locally in terms of the geographics. People traveling probably more likely to other games within the division. I think it makes a lot of sense that way. But we'll have to see if this is where baseball wants to go long term because it's a rather radical shift. Now, the other one that comes from the Athletic is from Stephen Nesbitt and has been talked about for a couple of years. In fact, I made a video on this exact division alignment well over a year ago now. So I think I'm right on the same page as Stephen Nesbitt because it keeps the AL and NL histories. Take a quick look through this one. In terms of the American League, you would see an AL East with Baltimore, Boston, the Yankees, and Toronto. The West would become the Las Vegas or whatever the Athletics are going to be. The Angels, an expansion Salt Lake City and Seattle. The North Division, the White Sox, Cleveland, Detroit, and Minnesota. South Division, we have Colorado moving to the American League, Houston, Kansas City, and Texas. In the National League, you'd have the Mets, Phillies, Pittsburgh, and Washington. West Division, Arizona, the Dodgers, Padres, and Giants. The North, the Cubs, Reds, Brewers, and Cardinals. And in the South, you'd have Atlanta, Miami, and expansion Nashville, which could easily be replaced by Raleigh or Charlotte, and the Tampa Bay Rays moving from the AL to the NL. Now, what do I like about this? Well, it gives some options in terms of expansion teams We talk about Salt Lake City. It could be Portland. It could be Nashville. It could be Charlotte. It could be Raleigh. There are some options with this one. Again, we're going with that 8 divisions of 4 teams. It fits very well geographically. It fits pretty well in terms of time zones, although there is a little question about one of them in terms of Kansas City and Texas and Houston, not maybe perfectly lined up that way, but it does set up very well geographically, just like the rivalry. Just like it would with Jim Bowden, it keeps some of those rivalries. Although I do like the East-West setting where you see the White Sox and Cubs together, so maybe there's great chances of rivalries built there. But there is a lot of pros and cons to both of these systems. I am more of a traditionalist. I like the AL and NL setup. I think of myself as an AL guy. I know there's a lot of people that think of themselves as NL people, and it fits very well into the traditions of baseball. Now, I'm not saying that has to continue to exist. I'm not against leaving that type of system behind. I think it's very traditional though. But the big thing with this is the rules are now the exact same. So the loss of AL and NL almost feels like it's happening a little bit anyway because of the exact same rules. So there's a lot of people that say, hey, we don't even know any difference anymore because of interleague play and the exact same rules. There is one other out there that I've been very interested in, and it's a division setup where you've got 4 divisions of 8 teams. Now, Brody Brazil has talked about this on YouTube. Take a look at his proposal there. I think this is something baseball should really consider as well. Gives a third option out there. That's, again, a little bit more radical if you want to go east-west. So his split goes down like this. He calls Division 1, which is really the West Division, Seattle, an expansion Portland, Athletics, which would be Las Vegas, the Giants, Dodgers, Angels, Padres, and Arizona. That division fits very well in terms of this setup. You have a very West Coast based division. His other division, very East Coast based, also makes a lot of sense in terms of travel. Yankees, Mets, Phillies, Blue Jays, Baltimore Orioles, the Nationals, Boston, and Pittsburgh. I really like that setup as well, especially if you want to have a lot of interdivision games within these setups. Where you lose me a little bit is on the other 2 divisions. A third division would feature an expansion Salt Lake City, Colorado, Texas, Houston, Kansas City, St. Louis, the Cubs, and the White Sox. That one still fits pretty well time zone wise. It does have the expansion of 2 teams in the West, unlike 2 teams in the East, which I actually really like. And then the last division has Minnesota, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, Miami, Detroit, and Cleveland. Now, this is where you lose me. There's a lot of different time zones there. There's a lot of spread out geography. Let's face it, Minnesota in the same division as Tampa Bay and Miami. This is where you really lose me in this setup. I just don't think it works because of this. I think you have 2, maybe 3 divisions that work really, really well in this setup. But as soon as you start to include Minnesota and Milwaukee, along with Atlanta and Tampa Bay and Miami, you're just losing me on this setup. So that's why I think Major League Baseball is going to likely favor the 4-team divisions rather than this big 8-team division with 4 divisions within it. Now, I'm not saying Major League Baseball won't go this way, but it seems to favor either the setup from Stephen Nesbitt that I really favor or the one from Jim Bowden. Make sure you comment down below what you think. Are you a favor of Nesbitt, of Bowden, of Brody Brazil, or what is your realignment take? Then share it down in the comment section down below. I love talking all this stuff. Now, what are you thinking in terms of playoffs with all these situations? This is the nice thing about this. I think you do not expand on the playoff structure in baseball. If you've got 8 divisions, then you take the winner from each division plus 2 wildcard teams. If you want to go with the bigger divisions, you're taking the top 2 from each division, and then you have 2 wildcard teams from each side, still having that 12-team playoff that Major League Baseball currently has. I think this is the way to go about it in terms of playoff structure. I think it really still fits that way. Now, with realignment could come a change in schedules, maybe see a reduction in games, maybe back to the 154-game schedule that Major League Baseball used to have. In terms of traditionalists, I think if you stay between 154 and 162, it really hits well with those records and all the things that from baseball past. I think you'd still be doing very well in keeping the tradition of the game. Thank you so much for making it in another video here on 3 Up, 3 Down. I greatly appreciate all your guys' support. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff. And until next time, take care, everyone.